What's up, guys? My name is Xander. This is the Deft Film podcast, and today we're going to be talking with Robert McMahon about a new film he's releasing called My Plant. How would you describe the new film that's coming out, and what genre and theme and mood would you say it falls into?
So in terms of describing it logline style, it's about two teenagers who are tasked with taking care of this man's plant, and plans go awry, and they have to kind of solve the situation before the man finds out. This would fall under a very lighthearted comedy, so not dramatic at all. No heavy subjects. It's very, very easygoing. It's just a fun time.
What caused you to, or inspired you to, first of all, create the film, write the film, and then more importantly, actually put it into action? Because there's some occasions where people, especially me, write something and then they decide not to make it in the end, and they kind of just wrote it to write it. How did this one compare to those, and then what made you actually want to push this one forward?
Yeah, so this past year I've been back in school in New York City studying film, and a big portion of our class for screenwriting is getting into a writing habit and having habits and routines where you just write every day. It doesn't have to be substantial writing, but it has to be a habit. So this past half year I've been getting into that habit. And then towards the end of last semester, we were tasked with creating a short film, which would be filmed in school. So what became My Plant was that assignment, but I decided to instead do it at home rather than at school, because I got halfway into the editing process, and I thought of the actors or my friends that I have on hand, and I figured they'd probably fit the role better than the people I could find in New York. And it's just when I had that that vision in my head, I had to steer the script in a different direction. But I did use the techniques that I learned at school to kind of push this script forward, which actually helped kind of take it from script pre-production and put it into production a lot easier.
You've basically been either writing or just kind of making pieces casually since a very young age. What would you say to the people who are putting a lot of thought into writing pieces for themselves and then not making it? What are the common limitations, and how do you get over that and actually make it happen?
Well, so it's weird. The most general thing is just to get, as I said, into a habit of writing. You don't have to write with any grand idea in mind necessarily. You don't need to know where you're going or even what characters are. It's just a good idea to write. That could be from you just have an idea about a scene or a setting or a tone or just one line of dialogue, and when you get into that flow, things kind of stem out from there. And then the next approach that I feel people, including myself, get caught up on is, do I write with expectation that I will record this later? Because obviously, depending on the resources you have, that'll greatly affect your script. I can't personally write a sci-fi thriller because I won't be making that anytime soon. But at the same time, at the end of that, it's a good idea to write things that you where you don't have to think about, will I be able to do this, and just kind of let the creative flow go. But as for me, I find it a good idea to limit myself, not creatively, but be realistic about things, because when people get too carried away with these big themes and big sets and stuff like that, then they find that towards the end of their ideas, they realize they can't make things. they can't bring that to life because of their lack of resources and lack of just things that they have available. So I guess like if you find you're not able to translate from page to screen, it may be because you're just thinking too out of the box at this time. It doesn't mean you can't think of out of the box ever, but you have to be realistic in some sense.
Did that type of like reality hit you on this piece, like where you had to kind of go back and change the script based on logistics?
That reality of like having to start thinking more in terms of what I have hit a while ago. I'd say like early high school, middle high school-ish, when I got more into like serious things, because when I was in like middle school with you, we'd make things, but then like we'd be like, why isn't this going anywhere? Like why isn't this like taking off? And it was because we were tackling subject matters that we just weren't prepared to physically make or even just like talk about. And so once I kind of stepped down from that and started thinking stories that fit my area, then I started I was able to see that things could get to the next step and things were moving on. And so with my plant in particular, I did keep that in mind once I started assigning the characters to the actors that I know. I was like, okay, what are these people able to do? What sets am I able to actually use? It didn't limit me creatively because I was still able to push some of the boundaries of like what I had, and I was able to kind of do things that I hadn't done before. But I also had to stay like, we can only use this area just because that's what we have available. But what can I do in that area? What can I do in this physical space?
When you wrote it and when you were going through the process of kind of putting it together, what was like the overall goal you had in mind for yourself, and then what was the overall goal you had in mind for the people who see it?
Yeah, so I think I wrote it in the Deft office in about like 20. I wrote the first draft in the Deft office in about 20 minutes. And my goal logistically and technically when writing it was to implement the methods I'd learned in school on how to like create characters and how to write and structure a script. But content wise, I wanted to do something a little more traditional in terms of plot, where it has the rising action, the climax, and the slowdown. I wanted a traditional story because prior to this I had done more mockumentary, more improv, off the script type things, and I wanted to take this and not change the subject matter in terms of like doing something different genre wise. I still wanted it to be lighthearted, but I wanted the approach of the story to be more traditional. Have actors who will learn a script and then follow the script, and then have a story that follows like a 3-act story structure.
How does that like compare to like your like the previous stuff you've made? How did that transition kind of work out?
It so far it worked pretty well. The stuff that I had been doing beforehand, I'd made scripts before, and we've tried to do script following and more structured films, but I guess it was just my lack of practice at that point where I wasn't able to kind of bring the script to the screen. But with this one, I had previously written a bunch of scripts that have not yet or will not be made, but it was all in the practice of writing scripts intended for that and having the story beforehand. And so with this one, it was a new challenge, but also I used my failures of the past and also the new things that I learned in school to kind of make this a little more traditional.
Now, like past writing and then into like the I guess like the producing side, and then like the overlooking the whole like the project as a whole. Um, what are like the biggest challenges that were faced? What did you do to overcome them? And then how did your past experience help you with that?
Yeah, so one of the bigger challenges that I anticipated for this one and that I tried to kind of handle ahead of time, which you can't really handle, is timing, because timing in terms of productions, like not going overtime on days of shooting. I filmed like a short film last year that um, will not be released, and I blame it due to the messy scheduling and the timing that went into that, then caused a really poor production process. Scenes didn't flow and things just weren't connected. So after I got the story down and the actors and the location for my plant, I made sure to keep the filming days kind of locked down and very close together. In this case, it was over 2 days. I think it was right after each other, and it was like an 8-hour shoot. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to keep the same momentum when I got to day 2. I wanted to have it kind of flow well. And I know that when you get to like bigger films, you have to schedule things around the actors. You don't shoot chronologically, you shoot according to when people are available. But I realized at my point currently I can't do that, so the best idea was to shoot the film chronologically following the script. And I think that helped the editing process. I think it helped the kind of the flow of action and of the dialogue and of the scenes all together, because in my case, when you're working with people who aren't professional, who aren't trained, who may not even want to be actors, but they can act, it's good to make it as easy as possible for them. I'd say that's the biggest problem I had to overcome. There were a few kind of there were a few like logistical problems here and there. I had to change some scenes to occur indoors instead of outdoors just because of like weather and such, but it was mostly the scheduling that we had to deal with.
What would be some recommendations you have for people that I guess want to improve on that timing aspect of it, and what would you say is like the biggest thing that they could do?
So for that specific problem I had in terms of getting things to flow, getting schedules to like work and complement the script, I think the first thing, if you can, is to find actors who work well together. I know finding actors is one of the hardest parts in general, and a lot of like starting people, including myself, didn't have that when we started. I was fortunate enough that my friends were willing to help me out, and they also had an acting talent, and so that's just the first step up. And then the second most important thing is to at this stage in the game, just make everything as easy as possible for your actors, because if this is the part where you're getting stuck at, you can assume that you have most of the technical parts down, and that what's holding you back is the acting, and it's not necessarily their fault. It could just be that it's not easy for them to get in the groove. And so your job as the director is to make it as easy as possible for the actors to do their job, which is just to act. And I think once that's down, then everything kind of falls into place.
This project was basically like almost wrapped up. You successfully wrote it, successfully shot it. and everything's really close to being finished up.
And
So
we're back.
what's something that you would do differently on like the next projects?
Yeah, on the next project, I would like to expand both kind of the pre-production and the production side. In terms of writing, I want to keep expanding that box that I've put myself in. I want to have more themes and more ideas that I normally wouldn't do, but I still feel like I can do and I'm ready to do. And then in terms of production, I definitely want to expand my crew, have a lot more people work on set behind the camera. What we did differently with my plant than I've ever done is we had a simultaneous 2-camera setup. It was me and Xander shooting at the same time, which made editing very seamless using like multicam and stuff, but it also just allowed us to be more efficient. And I realized that when you have a lot more people on set, the efficiency just kind of, it snowballs. You have someone doing the audio, so you don't have to worry about that. You have someone script supervising, so when you're editing, you know which takes are good. And you have someone doing the lighting and the DP, so that everything looks good when it needs to be good. And so you can just kind of make everything seamless. That's definitely what I want to do next. I'm still looking around to try to get that perfect crew, to find that chemistry with people. That's honestly the best part. You just have to find a group that works with you, and then slowly just kind of expand from there, get more talented actors, try adapting scripts from other people, etc., etc.
It almost seems as if you took on this film mostly to show yourself and kind of prove to the people that you work with that you're ready for the next step and you're ready for like making something more complex. Would you say that's true, or would you say it's kind of like that's just kind of like part of it?
Yeah, I guess I would say that every film you make should be, in a way, some kind of testament to like how far you've come, and it should also be a resume in sorts for like people who are interested in kind of investing in you as a person. You want everything you make to not move back in your career, but to help you move forward, or at least move diagonal. Because you can't stay comfortable. Even if things work, you have to keep pushing yourself ahead, because then things won't get better. Sometimes you won't realize that things aren't as good as they can be unless you start pushing yourself forward.
What would you say is like what's next, and more importantly, how are you making like basically turning lemons into lemonade during this time specifically to help push that goal of what's next?
Yeah. In terms of what's next, I'm writing stuff on my own. It's a weird time right now. I'll get to that in a second, but this past few months I've been kind of looking into adapting screenplays. It feels like a necessary step for me to be able to take someone else's story and kind of give my vision on it. So I'm working with a few friends who like write, but they can't direct, and I want to take on that new challenge of taking someone else's story, maybe a story that I wouldn't naturally do myself, but like it's a progression that needs to be done for me creatively. That specifically, to a certain extent, isn't that hard during today's time here in quarantine. Working with writers, you can do online and things, but it's when I want to start kind of getting things in motion, it's going to be hard. I think the entire film production industry is kind of at a weird standstill right now, and when things kind of start up again, you'll need to get the gears moving. So it might be a while before I can truly get another thing out and start working. But I'm trying as hard as I can to do what I can do in quarantine, kind of do a lot of the background things and help myself as a writer and as a kind of communication.
The piece My Plant is going to drop within the next couple of weeks, probably around 3 weeks. You can follow Robert on Robert S. McMahon on Instagram, and that's probably where that's also what his website, that's where he'll post it. You can watch it by clicking the link once it's up there, and you can support it by watching it, liking it on whatever platform you see it on, messaging any feedback you might have to him. And if you want to bring awareness to it, you can share it on those platforms and like the post, comment on the post so that it shows up on people's feed.